Arrived at this site, they found 4 buildings. Okay, there were the mill, which is hidden behind those trees. It's right there, but it's so shrouded in vines it's like invisible, but it's right there. It's right next door to that little yellow building, which is the bathhouse. So there was a mill. That mill pumped water up. You could pump water into a bucket, go into the bathhouse and have a bath, or it pumped water into the kitchen, which is that building right over there. The 4th building was the house. Okay, when they arrived here, the house was 10 feet lower than you see here today. This house grew to the height that you see today during the military period. Between 2004 and 2007, George Washington House was restored, and it was restored to plans drawn by Sir Charles Shipley, who was the commander of the Royal Engineers, who lived in this house from 1789 until 1815. So those were the plans that this house was restored to. That's why you see it the way it looks today. So during that military period, this house grew 10 feet. All right? This house remained an officer's residence right through the garrison era. So right through until 1905, this was an officer's residence. So those were the 4 buildings that the Washingtons found when they got here. So a little bit about the house. The house was built around 1717. It was built by a man named William Cogan. William Cogan's daughter was married to the commander of James Fort in Bridgetown. Bridgetown was very important, okay, to the British. The harbour was one of the most important harbours in the entire British Empire. Certainly the only harbour that rivaled it in this part of the world was in Boston. That was the only harbour that rivaled it. And it was a large harbour. It could accommodate up to 400 sailing vessels. So it was well protected. One of the forts that protected it was James Fort, and the owner of this house was the commander of James Fort, and he owned this house through marriage because his wife was Cogan's daughter. So it was from Captain Crofton, the commander of the fort, that the Washingtons rented this house from when they visited in 1751. Now, in terms of what was done during the restoration period here, there were a number of advisors from the United States that were here looking at this house before it was restored in 2004. Just to give you an idea of who they were, we had advisors here from Colonial Williamsburg. We had advisors here from the University of Florida Preservation Institute. There were also advisors here from the Friends of Cincinnati, which is an association in the United States. As a matter of fact, the head of that association is a man named Jack Warren, who is considered by many to be the top Washington expert alive in the world today, alongside of local architects, historians and archaeologists. So between all those individuals, they went through this site with a fine-tooth comb, determined that this was the place. They did all the archaeology that they needed to do. They got a lot of information that way, and it was established that this was the house that George Washington stayed in 1751. Any questions? Okay, let's keep going.